So I want to share with you guys this idea that it took me a while to try to unpack and unravel, understand about myself as well, which is that you should not be hooked on your look. All right. You shouldn't be so gung ho and so fixated on your appearance. I think it's probably the biggest detriment to your development as a man. Um, and let me just share with my experience is that I was accustomed to and expecting um, a certain a certain sort of perception from people, right? And so one of the things was my issue was that I was hooked on the look, right? I used that sometimes to my advantage, but it was also a disadvantage. I expected people to kind of perceive me a certain way, and as a result, it became super important, right? I was fixated on my look. It was something I was invested in. Even if I didn't necessarily say it to anyone, it was internal. And so it kind of drove and directed a lot of my actions. And I think it's detrimental because of the fact that, like, as a man, you should develop in all these other facets, right? Because at the end of the day, your looks are a depreciating asset. So if you're gonna bank on that to get attention, I think it's gonna give you diminishing returns. And so I think what you need to understand is that yes, it's important to be obviously get your hygiene on point and look decent. I'm not saying you should look uh, like you're on Skid Row or like a bum. Um, what you should do instead, what you should do instead, that was not even that funny, but what you should do instead is understand that there's other qualities that you need uh, to be able to express. And so I think one of the things that I can tell you from experience is that when you overthrow that, when you strip that away from who you are, which is this idea that you're invested in your look, strip that away, what are you left with, right? You're left with the ability to speak, right? Can you be interesting? Do you have passions, right? Are there things you're working on? Are there goals that you're trying to check off your list? Are you trying to get better? These are the things that I think matter ultimately, right? Because it's all about energy. It's all about aura. It's what you put out into the world, right? It's your matter, and that doesn't necessarily come strictly from just the way you look. Because like I can tell you from experience now that I've kind of stripped that away from who I was, this whole idea of being invested in the look, I felt liberated. Because then I realized like that's not what I should be focusing on. I should be focusing on all these other things. Because I used to be really fixated on this idea that I should look a certain way, right? I should try to preserve my looks. I should try to look fresh, And now I'm going towards more of like a caveman aesthetic, and it's partly because I wanted to make sure that I remove myself wholly from that idea, and I figured that would be the best way, right? Is to try to not stand out in any particular way. And what I realized was that um, it was all about the energy. It was all about how you carry yourself, and it's super important to not be so fixated on that, right? On how you're being perceived necessarily. And like I said, I've learned a lot from the idea of stripping away that idea of having that. I know I keep saying idea, but having that idea, having the idea in your mind that you're somehow like your looks are going to determine your success in the dating market or in the things that you accomplish, right? That like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do X, Y, and Z because until I can, I don't know, uh, have a certain amount of evidence that the way I'm looking, especially with this all this looks maxing stuff kind of going around. Everybody's trying to get a skincare routine and uh, cut their hair all the time and dress super well. And like I said, these are all things you can do, but they should not be. You should not be expending so much energy on those things. Um, I think that's the most important part about it, right? Because then you can focus on other things. And at the end of the day, if you're really interested in attracting a mate, that's not going to be the main reason why. It's all about your aura. That's what I'm saying. Like, you need to cultivate that. You need to focus on that. Invest time in figuring out who you are, the things that are really going to define who you are, and that's the stuff you can't fake. Because all that looks maxy stuff, that's all like fake confidence, right? I mean, you got to have something profoundly, deeply inside of you that people can recognize and respect. And I think that's important. And you shouldn't just be so fixated on how you're being perceived in terms of your looks. And I'm telling you, I'm telling you from someone that was really invested in that, and that I've wrestled with that idea, and that I've done away with, and it's been the best thing I've ever done, because I don't have that need to put up a certain appearance, and so it's just made things easier for me to focus on other things. And I think if you decide to go that route, you'll understand that it's not so important. And look, maybe it's a luxury to say, oh, I'm going to overthrow my looks. Perhaps. But nevertheless, I think anybody could do this. If you put that energy into other things, you'll see that it'll still pay dividends. All right.